phone right up? Let me see if that's you. Yep, it's her. Okay, hold on, Janet. We can hear everything you're doing with paper or whatever. You've got the best equipment in the world.
I don't know
Janet's
why
just one.
Hear it.
It is, and I can hear it. I've been listening to you. Yeah, it's probably because you don't know.
Headphones.
But it's not your head listening. It's your. Yeah, I just muted, but it's easy with this equipment. But Janet has got the best. But when she puts on her headphones, she doesn't realize when she's moving her hands, it's going into. And I hear that because I watch her on TV. Well, I listen to her on TV, and I've heard yours recently in December with Dr. Alexander Sasha Lesson, because Janet also, not only did she produce Stargate to the Cosmos, but she and her husband have been producing radio shows for years and years, since we started in 2012, as have I. And we're really happy to have Ken Johnston, author. We're all three authors. So tonight I'm promoting UFO Secret Space Command, but group. And we're going to keep it separate. I mean, I do try to keep up on everything, and I've been listening to all the scuttlebutt among other radio show hosts, but also about a letter and a cease and desist order on using the SSP. And Janet, you know what? We've been using Secret Space Command long before 2011, as far as I know. But, you know, people, it doesn't matter, because we can be the way the America wants us to be, with trademarking and copywriting and protecting patents and all of that. But, you know, since we've got on the Internet, I work with a lot of attorneys. And, you know, they would like you to keep doing and fighting and not doing it the way you should, so you can get them to work for you, give them more money, to be quite honest. But, you know, this is what we're talking about lately, is how we're going to play together. So that's why I invited Janet and Ken, because they've both been out there. Now, I would like you to know I've got a story to tell. Janet does, and Ken Johnston does, astronaut Ken Johnston, Dr. Ken Johnston of metaphysics. And I think we're going to blend really well together for the future radio shows, conferences, courses, events, webinars. So we'd like you to remember our names and listen for us. But I have only done Mid-South Con in 2016, so you may not be quite aware of us as much as Richard Dolan, who's really been out there, and he'll be going to the Alien Con, so kudos for him, and Jimmy Church as well. But Ken, you want to tell us how many? You've been to at least 3 conferences, but you've been like an A-lister billing with. Tell us which ones, because Janet, you too. But we're gonna start off here for American Communication Online, okay? And we're gonna have topic panel discussions tonight. And Chant may show up. I may have Janet check on that. But Janet's been instrumental in being an administrator for years, and orchestrating this for people and knowing experiencers. So Ken, back to you. When I met you a year ago at the Mars Anomaly Conference, when
right.
So you spoke about your life and your books, but before that or after that, I guess it would be after that, since 2017, didn't you meet Janet again at another con, at the UFO Con?
You're talking about Janet Lesson?
Yeah.
Yeah. I met them at Contact in the Desert in 2014, I believe. I've actually been on 14 different programs ever since, we're going back almost 10 years. I was at the National Press Conference and put the word out around the world back. Oh, God.
I didn't know you were there, Ken. You never told me.
Yeah.
Did you?
Well, you've not read my autobiography, have you?
I guess I haven't seen one. Did you send me I asked you to send me a new one. I'm sorry, Janet. I'm sorry, but I'll get all that. We're going to do this after this show. I didn't know for sure who was going to show up, so I got plenty of time to get all the updated bio and pictures. I'm working on it. So if you didn't send it to me, I guess I didn't read it good. All right, fill us in, because this is to just get this tonight's, folks, is just to get back acquainted with Janet and myself and, of course, Ken Johnson. So, Ken, all right, take us back in time. And then, some people may or may not know the skinny of your life, and we'll be able to put up pages about it in books. But let's go back. How many conferences? So, Contact in the Desert in 2014. That's the first time you met Janet Carolesson.
Yes, I've been on Contact in the Desert way back when it was in the desert with Richard C. Hoagland back in whatever years, decades it was back there. In reality, I guess the people might want to know that I started off with working as NASA with Grumman back in 1966, and then became one of the 4 civilian astronauts, and then helped do the testing, the vacuum chambers, and training the astronauts how to fly it. And then I went to work once we landed on the moon. Grumman laid off 30,000 of us, and I went over to the Lunar Receiving Laboratory and became the director of the Data and Photo Control Department, which meant that I had direct access of all the pictures, the film, and all the data that was being sent back by the astronauts, as well as what they brought back and the samples as well. So once we were supposed to go all the way through at Apollo 20, and we stopped at Apollo 17, and that's whenever the Lunar Receiving Laboratory started laying some of us off there. I went over to the ILC Corporation that builds the Apollo space suits, and was one of the test engineers on that project, and went to work on the Skylab. And after we got the Skylab going good, I actually, after we reached the point of about, that means 1980, I decided it was time to get out of all of the you got laid off about every 4 years, because that's when contractors contracts would end and you'd have to start over with a new one. So I went to work up in Denver, Colorado with Martin Marietta Corporation on the Peacekeeper. By the way, you know how you keep peace in the world? You have a good idea about that? If you got the biggest
I
bomb,
didn't know that could happen.
No, if you have the biggest bombs and the biggest rockets, that probably is the way you supposedly control the world. Anyway, so after we had the Apollo, space shuttle disaster that blew up on launch, then I went to work for the Boeing company in Seattle, Washington, and became a flight instructor for the Boeing 737s, and I put 14 years in there, and they offered us an early retirement because of the way the company was going back there. So in the meantime, I wound up listening to the radio and the programs, and I was listening to, we had a group at Boeing, we called ourselves the Majestic 12, of course. There were 12 of us. We would send messages in the inter-office mail envelopes. We didn't have cell phones and be able to send things back and forth like that, so we would keep track. And one of the guys contacted me. He says, "Hey, Ken, Richard C. Hoagland," which we'd all listened to it, is going to be giving a program in Seattle at the big tower. And he said, "Why don't you go?" So I put together a little story and told Richard Hoagland them that I had my own records and had been keeping all the film and pictures and records that I'd kept on myself. And I showed up and went in the front door, and there was a lady sitting there. I was getting ready to buy my ticket, and I said, "Oh, would you give Mr. Hoagland this letter of introduction?" She looks at it, and I honestly, I swear, it looked like her hand started. She says, "You're who we've been looking for." And I said, "Uh-oh, I'm in trouble now." So Mr. Hoagland came out, and he spoke to me for 2 minutes. He says, "Get down on the front row. We're going to get together in this." So that evening, we talked, and he made arrangements for 6 of his team to come over to my house. And I had a big double-door vault that I'd kept all this stuff in for safety, and I had opened it up, and they started going through looking at things, and they were just going wild because they've been seeing generation after generation after generation copies of a lot of the pictures and things that showed things on the moon and the backside of the moon. And here they were looking at the originals, and these guys just went absolutely berserk. In fact, my wife was looking at one of the pictures of one of the astronauts' visor, and there was a perfect picture of one of those spacecrafts hovering up above the astronauts that were sitting there on the moon. So that kind of gets you up to 1995. 1985? Richard Hoagland says, "We've got to get you in front of the national press and get you public, or else you could have an car accident, or get bumped off." And unfortunately, we've had a lot of people who have died for one reason or another that were supposed to be coming forward with information. So that has been the way it's worked out very good for me. And like I say, I went to a lot of conferences back in those days, and as local and as well as on the very first Contact in the Desert one that they had up. And I can't remember the name of the little place out in the desert, but that's where it got its name.
Well, when were you in New York? Because my husband worked directly for NASA, but his father worked for Grumman with you in Houston. And from Houston, he went to Long Island, New York. Grumman was out there. I went out there. And I went out there in 1968. So he must have transferred out at NASA before you did with Grumman.
No.
But you did go to New York because you worked with Grumman, right?
Guess what? You were there in 1968. I got out of the Marine Corps in 1966. 1967, I went to Bethpage, Long Island with Grumman, where I was one of the test conductors of the lunar modules that were going through the assembly line. And I was there for like 3 months and working 14 and 16 hours a day to try to meet John F. Kennedy's request that we go to the moon and return, before the decade was out. And so I was there in
Bethpage, Long Island?
Bethpage, Long Island.
Working for Grumman. We've crossed paths too many times. This is nuts, folks, but it's a small planet. Not everybody gets to work around this type of work, and so it's very pleasing to. I wanted to ask you that for sure because it was a fun time, but I didn't understand the transfer from NASA. But maybe he didn't have a choice, or maybe he saw the writing on the wall. I don't know, but he did go up to there. And okay, well that's good. So we've got that established. But I never ran across you that I could remember, other than you did go to 2001 Space Odyssey at the Windsor Theater, right? When I did, we were only special people got to come with the astronauts and the wives.
Yep.
The showing of 2001 Space Odyssey.
Absolutely.
And you went to that too, didn't you?
I was up on the first, second, or third row, right in the very front. You bet.
Wow, I wasn't up that close. I was back maybe 14. I was probably on row 14. I was in the middle, but I wasn't up totally. You were up there with the big shots.
Well, I was a little shot with big shot. How's that?
Well, this is pretty cool. Well, Janet, I think that there was a reason that you and Karen wanted us all to get together, and that's why I was trying to get him to tell us when he met you.
Did you unmute me? Am I unmuted now?
You are unmuted. You were never muted.
Oh, I thought I heard you mute me. Okay. Okay, I've been listening. That was very interesting. I got a call from somebody that wants to call into the show. Are we taking calls tonight?
Well, is it Chant Hannah or somebody that knows that we're doing this show?
Yeah, it's somebody else that is in the Secret Space program. They just called me while you were talking to Ken. And
well, no, tonight, maybe at the last hour, but I've got to get I want to get the topics separated before we start taking this on as a bona fide show every 2 hours, or taking on new people, because right now I got to get you handled. Yeah, we're not. I don't have you two qualified yet tonight. I made you and Ken room, and I was going to have Chant because she was working with Jan Harzan, who is the president. He was former IBM, Ken, right?
Well, I'll just text the guy the phone number, and you can. I'll tell him.
Yeah, tell him in the last 30 minutes, maybe. But I don't know that I want to introduce new people because I've got to screen them first. And I've got to know their story,
he wants
folks.
To ask a question or something. Anyway,
okay.
Okay, so what
we can do it the last hour.
What's the focus today?
So basically, I want to get alienology and ufology, the chronology, and our topics, levels, timelines, and metaphysics, because there's a lot of we threw the looking glass on the floor, and we broke it up before we came here, and we've given people the different pieces, sort of like Thoth did, and they threw pieces. They used to throw pieces at everybody all over the universe, So what's going on, folks, is I'm separating Ace Folk Life from reality, meaning if it's not folk life, what is it? And Dr. Lesson, being an